Hi guys! Today we are going to do a little bit of review. Whenever we start a unit, it has some items that we need to recall from our prior knowledge. So these are probably going to be really simple review things for you, but we're going to run through them just to get our brains ready to go into ratios. So I'm going to do one of these problems, and then I would like you guys to do the second one. Hopefully you're listening, because otherwise you may do all of them, but I'm just going to do the first one. You can do the next one. And the first one actually, we're going to walk through straight up here. The first thing we need to know that we're going to be using in our rates unit is multiplying whole units. So multiplying whole units, if you remember, that's just where we take a whole number like 324 and times it or multiply it by 72. So what they've done here is 324, they wrote it down, put 72 lined up the ones positions. 4 times 2 is 8. Then 2 times 2 is 4, which they wrote right here. 2 times 3 is 6. Don't let these numbers get you mixed up there for this problem, part of the problem down here. So 648, and then remember, whenever we do this second number here, we just times all of it by 2. Now we need to go to the 7. We have to put our 0 that holds our place down here before we even start doing the multiplication. So we add our 0 right here, just like they did in the ones place. Then we do 7 times 4. They carried their 2 and put the 8 down here for 28. Then they did 7 times 2, which is 14. So they put their, and then they added their 2 up here, which is 16. So here's the 6. They carried the 1. And 7 times 3 is 21. They added this 1 up here, and it came to 22. So then we just add all those up as long as we've kept it in columns here and our holding place 0 is in the ones place, and then everything else should be lined up in our columns. We go ahead and add up 8 plus 0 is 8, 4 plus 8 is 12, and then we carried our 1, 6 plus 6 is 12, added our 1 that we carried, it makes 13. We carried our 1 here, and they don't show that, but we know that that's true. So we go 2, added with our 1 is 3, and then 2 and 0 is 2. So if you remember how to do that, I'd like you to do number 1 and number 2. You don't need to do 3 and 4. So just number 1 and number 2, and that it will be part of your homework tonight. Then we're going to slip right down here. I'm going to push my book up here. We're going to slip right down here, and we're going to work on multiplying fractions or mixed numbers by a whole number. Now this is something that we just went over because we did our fractions, and so we're just going to go over this real quickly, and then you'll have a couple to do. So let's go over right here, and we are going to do 12 over 15 times 3, this whole number. And the whole number, remember, we just went over this. Whenever you have a whole number there, you just put it over 1. So that's what they've done here. They took 15, and because we are timesing, they said to, over here you can see it says divide the denominator of the fraction and the whole number by the common factor 3, and then multiply. So you can see that they've done that right here. 2 over 15 times 3, and then they rewrote it, and they are cross-canceling here kind of in their own little way. 15 divided by 3 is going to make a 5 down here, which would be 2/5, and then they put, because 3 over 3 is just 1, so they divided 3 by 3 equals 1. So now we have 2/5 times 1. Anything times 1 is just itself, so we end up with 2/5. So this one we'll run through real quick. 2 over 3/5. Now we're doing mixed numbers times 4. So anytime we have a mixed number, we want to turn it into an improper fraction so that we can actually go ahead and do our multiplication. So remember to turn something to an improper fraction. If it's a mixed number, we just go our denominator. 5 times 2 would equal 10, and then we just add our numerator. So 5 times 2 would equal 10. If we add 3, it will equal 13, and our denominator always stays the same, which will give us 13 over 5 times 4. And so if we put 4 over the 1, we will come out with our multiplication straight across, which is 52 over 5, and then we want to turn it back into a mixed number so that it's the original form they gave it to us, which by doing that we take 5 divided into 52. It goes in 10 whole times with a remainder of 2, and the denominator always stays the same. So if you guys would do number 5 and 6, that would be wonderful, and we'll go over those in class. So I'm going to write over here, we need to do numbers 1 and 2 and 5 and 6 so far. Do numbers 1 and 2 and 5 and 6. And on the next page, we're going to turn the page, and I would like you guys, I think these ones are pretty simple, so I would like you guys to, sorry I'm moving my book here, hopefully you're not getting sick over watching me do that. So multiplying fractions, if you remember, we had a wonderful song that went with this. We just multiply across, so they're just going 4 times 3, and they kind of did a little bit of a different way where we divide a numerator and a denominator by the common factor 4, which is just essentially their way of cross-canceling. If we cross-cancel, we'd cross this out. 4 goes into 4 one time, 4 goes into 16 4 times, and then 3 would go into 3 one time, it goes into 9 3 times, which then would just go ahead and give us that 1 on top. I will go ahead and do that on paper because it's kind of hard to do it. So if we're going 4 over 9 times 3/16, then it would just cross cancel to 4 goes into 4 one time, it goes into 16 4 times, 3 goes into 3 goes into itself one time, and into 9 3 times. Then we multiply across. 1 times 1 is always 1. 3 times 4 is 12. And so it would be 1/12. And you can see on your paper, they kind of did that. They just did kind of a longer drawn out way. So do whichever way works best for you. But essentially they came out with the same numbers here, 1 and 1, 3 and 4, which is what we came out with when we cross-canceled, and then they ended up with 1/12. So if you guys could also add to your list of things, do 9 and 10. I'll write that right over here. We're also going to do 9 and 10 in the way I just showed you. And then we will do, our next one is dividing with fractions. And if you remember, dividing fractions, if you remember the wonderful song that we had, I'm going to push my book up here. Dividing fractions, right down here, is we just took 3/4 divided by 27, and if you want to divide, look on the right side. So here's our right side, and remember our song said look on the right side, then do the reciprocal and multiply. So they did the reciprocal. We would make this 27 over 1. If we do the reciprocal, which is just flipping it for division, we multiply, do the reciprocal, and they kind of did it in their confusing way, but I'm going to go ahead and, if that is confusing to you, I will go ahead and just do this on a paper here. So we will go 34 divided by 27. We will put that over 1. Then we do the reciprocal, 3/4 times 1/27, and that will be multiplying across equals 3 over 4 27ths, but we can actually cross cancel. 3 goes into 3 one time and goes into 27 9. So actually we can simplify that a little easier, and we're going to go 1 times 1 is 1. 4 times 9 is 36, so it's just 1 over 36, which is the answer they got here. So if you guys could also add 11 and 12 to the problems you need to do, and we'll write that right over here, 11 and 12. And then the last couple that we're going to do is right here in our book, dividing fractions. And I'm not going to walk all the way through this because it's essentially the same thing as we just did. It was just doing it with whole numbers. So if we want to divide, look on the right side, multiply, do the reciprocal, and they went ahead and took that all the way through. So I'm not going to have you do any problems there because you just did over there. And lastly, I'm going to have you do finding the quantity represented by a number of units. We just got done doing this with our ratios. So it says if 4 units represent 132 centimeters, find the value of 9 units. If 4 units represent 132 centimeters, all we would need to do is say 132 divided by our 4 units, which over here we can see is 132 divided by 4 is 33, and then we would take that 33 and know that every unit is 33, including our 9 units here, and go 9 times 33 for 297 centimeters. So if you could add 17 and 18 to your problems that you need to do, 17 and 18. So running through this, you need to do problems 1 and 2, 5 and 6, 9 and 10, 11 and 12, 17 and 18. And then we should be able to do one more over here, which is finding ratios. Just to refresh our mind, this should be pretty fresh in your mind, and we're just going to run through it real quick. You can use ratios to compare 2 quantities expressed as the same unit. Find the ratio of 47 centimeters to 2 centimeters. So 47 meters to 2 meters. And remember, when we do with ratios, if these units that we're talking about are not the same, we need to make them the same. So it says centimeters and meters are different units. Express 2 meters as 200 centimeters because there is 100 centimeters in each meter. So 2 meters would equal 200 centimeters. So now we need to change them to the same units, and instead of 2 meters, we will now change 47 centimeters to 200 centimeters so that we're working with the same units here. So our ratio is 47 to 200. The ratio can be expressed in 3 ways, remember. You can do 47 colon 200. You can also do 47 to 200. Or you can do 47 over 200 since it is a division problem. So when you divide or multiply terms of a ratio by the same number, you obtain the equivalent. Remember that? So if we had an original ratio of 12/18, we could divide them both. As long as we do both sides by the same number, it will break it down to 6/9. Then we can even reduce it or simplify it further by dividing it by 3, and then it will simplify to 2/3. So I would like you guys to do also as your last problems here on the bottom, problems number 19 and 20, and also 23 and 24. That should give you plenty of things to do tonight. That is 14 problems, and hopefully when you come back tomorrow you listened well to the video so you're not doing all the problems, just 1 and 2, 5 and 6, 9 and 10, 11 and 12, 17 and 18, 19 and 20, and 23 and 24, and we will go over those tomorrow in class. Thanks so much, you guys. Have a great night, and we will see you in the morning.